It says we are live. Yay, everybody.
Yay, we're live.
Welcome to another, I was going to call it my other old thing, Menopause Monday, to our MidLife Girl Chats today. Today's one of those days. I think I'm kind of wound. So this should be fun. So I'm excited to be here this week, and I have Joan, is it Stenzler? Is that how you say it?
Yep.
With me. She is a motivational speaker, a communication specialist, and a women's empowerment coach. And she's from the big NYC. So, and she has a big message to share with us today. We're going to talk about the three common reasons that a smart woman hesitates to speak up. And 5 things that we can do. 5 inspiring strategies so we can. Joan teaches the smart, successful woman who is a natural nurturer how to release fear, step out of her comfort zone, and find her authentic voice. When a woman embodies the courage to speak up, her confidence soars and she becomes a valued voice in an important conversation or conversations. With decades of experience, Joan is a master at designing empowerment programs for women that are engaging, effective, and foster meaningful connections and conscious community. Woo! Joan has got it going on. Her one-to-one sessions, group coaching, and VIP services provide women with time-tested process for inner transformation. That's a big mouthful. That helps create unshakable confidence, empowered communication, and profound life transformation. I'm having a hard time with this. I told you, I'm like, I did my little thing that gave me like energy. I'm like all wound. So Joan is going to offer, and when we get done here, she'll talk about her free 3-day personal empowerment infusion that's going to come up next month so that it will help you say yes to you. So she will tell us more. Stick around because it's going to be amazing. So welcome, Joan. Thanks for coming on with me tonight. How are you today?
I'm great. I've had a wonderful, wonderful day, and I've been looking forward to this all day. So I am psyched to talk to you about this. It's one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah. And we as women tend to just do for everybody else and not speak up for ourselves. And I remember it was like, make sure they had dinner, make sure there was clothes washed, and it didn't matter what Kim had to say. So why don't you tell us a little more about what you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to be here and to share this with you and with your audience today. What do I do? Well, I'm a communication specialist. And as you said, motivational speaker and a women's empowerment coach. And I was thinking about our conversation a little earlier today and thinking, how did I get to be a women's empowerment coach and a communication specialist? And kind of went back and became aware of my roots and my background. So I want to tell you a little bit about that first.
Yes.
And then we'll get into that. We'll dive right into some of those challenges and the strategies that can help. So I was blessed because I came from a very smart family, not necessarily peaceful a lot of the time. There was a lot of, people thinking they knew better, which can create a little tension. But my dad was a professor, college professor, and he taught the classics. He taught the Iliad, the Odyssey. He would walk around the house every once in a while reading early English. I mean, he was a really bright guy. It wasn't like, he was very down to earth. Mm-hmm. And he taught me to love the sound of the spoken word. He just did. He would take my mom out. You're going to love this. Your audience is going to love this. He would take my mom out in a boat during the summer when we were away in the country, and he would go out with a book of poetry, and they'd go out with some grapes and some wine and some cheese, and he'd read to her on the lake.
Oh, that's awesome. Where is that man at?
I exactly. Well, we were very blessed because he was with us till he was 92. We
Nice.
we lost him about he was with us till about 12 years ago. When he was here, he helped me to really understand the power of words. And the funny thing is, I don't know if he really realized that that's what I was learning from him. I mean, he was teaching me how to write things grammatically correctly, and he was teaching me how to, write a good report or I would write poetry. We'd sing songs together, and we loved reciting out loud. So singing is reciting out loud, and reading poetry is reciting out loud. We loved reading Alice in Wonderland together. We were reciting out loud because words have power, and words convey feeling, and words can persuade people to believe differently, and sometimes good and sometimes not so good. We hope that our words, when we use them with care, will transform things in a positive way. And unfortunately, a lot of times people don't know how to use their words. They don't know how to convey things. And in the case of women, well, women have been taught forever and ever that they should take a back seat, that they're there to help everybody else, and that it's not about what they want so much. It's about how they can serve everyone else. And so when you get that message, it feels like a real challenge to the status quo to say, I don't want to do that. I think I'd rather do this. When wanting to do something different and having a preference is perfectly normal and makes a lot of sense. Often when women have had over the years different beliefs or different feelings about what they wanted to do in certain situations, or whether or not they agreed in what they might want to say, they were thinking of it and they were thinking, maybe I want to say that, there was a deterrent from doing it because there was always a fear of what would happen if I said that. What would happen if I did that? How would people see me? Would people consider that I was acting not like a woman, or, from years ago, I was acting unladylike, right? And then how would people respond? And so there was a tendency a lot of times to sit back, be quiet, and just let things go. Okay. The other thing is that the other side of not wanting to rock the boat, because that's kind of what I just described, was the whole idea that if you said something or if you did something to express how you felt, there could be a negative consequence. There could be conflict. There could be someone who disagreed with you. There could be someone who criticized you or who invalidated you. Or worse, there are people out there, and I coined a phrase for them. I call them communication saboteurs, who you're talking to them and they just grab the conversation, they run away with it, and they take it somewhere else. They're not even thinking about whether or not you are listening to them. They're just, their main interest, their main concern is that they're in charge. And so, we have people like that in our lives where there is really no way to have a conversation. But there are many other people where we have the potential. And one of the things that's not always easy to do, but one of the things that's important to be able to look at is, what do I know about this person? What has the history been with them? Have they been someone that when I've had something to say, have they been willing to listen? Have they been someone that has been reasonable, and where I feel like there's some movement there, potential movement, if I were to have a conversation? So to be able to distinguish between one person and another, and one situation and another, is one important way that women who are hesitating to say something can say something, to really figure out where is this, what are the situations in which I feel I can do this, and it's likely that there'll be a pretty good response. Now, there are going to be times when we have something to say and there won't be a good response. And the question then becomes, how important is it to us? Well, I'm going to go back for a moment and talk to you about my family. Okay. So I first became aware of the importance of expressing myself while I was hanging around with my grandma and my mother, and they were amazing. They were forces of nature and forces to be reckoned with, and in a good way. I am blessed to come from a family of strong, confident women who did not shy away from a challenge, but instead figured out how to tackle it. And so many of them successfully, and they tackled it head on. They just went right for it, right? And while they each had their blind spots and some limitations, they were amazing role models because they taught me to believe in myself and my abilities and to never let anyone try to convince me that I can't do something without at least trying. I mean, we're not talking about becoming an astronaut or a neurosurgeon, things that it's not going to happen because I'm nearsighted. I'm not going to be a neurosurgeon, but things that are within my reach that I shouldn't allow anybody to discourage me from doing that. And it almost seemed as if there was nothing they couldn't do. I mean, I'm talking about day-to-day things, how to handle running a family of 10. My grandmother had 10 children, and they were very, very poor.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there was always food on the table, and everyone had something to wear. And of course, there were hand-me-downs because you have 10 kids, you hand clothing down. It was harder for the girls because there were 3 girls and 7 boys. So it was harder for the girls because there weren't as many girls to get clothes from. It was also harder for the girls because in that day and age, even as resourceful as my grandmother and my mother were, a lot of it fell on the women. And my mother was the middle daughter, so she got the brunt of it. And she had a lot of things she had to do to help her mother. And she did it. Now, one of the things that I know about them is that they had a set of strategies, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes because I want to go back to look at what the obstacles are first. They had a set of strategies they were using. And it's funny because I really wasn't thinking about them and that when I was preparing to talk with you. And as I was sitting down today, I was like, oh my goodness, all of those things that I've been teaching for years. And you'll know about it because you teach about it too. I just don't want to give it away yet, right? They were doing that all those years ago. Now, let's go back, okay? So, women who come from families where children should be seen and not heard, okay? I never heard that. I'm very lucky. I'm a New York Jewish woman. My family never said that. We were very loud and very, very opinionated, and we always interrupted each other. Not the same as a lot of other families. So we had an advantage in terms of that. That you had to yell a lot to get heard, that was a whole other story. So, but a lot of people that I work with, I have a number of people who came from the Midwest who said, you'd have to sit there and fold your hands. You couldn't say anything. You couldn't express yourself, and you couldn't take part in a lot of conversations. And so women who grew up that way were especially handicapped because they had been taught to just be silent, be silent, be silent, be silent, be silent. And then all of a sudden they get to a certain age and all of a sudden it's like, well, you don't have to be so silent anymore. Right. We really may not want to hear that much from you, but you can say a little bit, So how do you figure out how to transition into that? It's really very hard. Can you relate to anything that I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We just don't, right?
Right. Now, one of the things that I have discovered over the many years that I am working now with women in my private practice, because I'm a psychotherapist, I've been in practice for 30 years. And then as things developed over the time, the pandemic became, everybody's challenge for the whole world, right? I started doing communication coaching and empowerment coaching, but I had done that always. One of the things I recognized was that women tend to really underestimate themselves. Now, I didn't discover America, nor did I discover this concept because other people knew this, that women underestimate themselves. Mm-hmm. The truth is, women really do. Women are so smart. They're so capable. They have such potential, but they're so accustomed to playing the second fiddle and letting other people take the lead and being like the backup person. And not everybody is, but still, even though people have gone up the ladder, work wise, and have gone into successful positions at a very, high level, there's still that doubt there, right? And
Right.
a lot of people call it what? What do they call it? Imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome, I don't know if you know this. Imposter syndrome was a concept that was coined by two female psychologists who did some research on highly successful, very, very, very smart, highly successful women who had moved up the corporate ladder. They were in corporate America and they didn't know how to be in corporate America. Why? Because there was so few women. There was no model for them. And so they felt like they weren't fitting in and they felt like imposters because what? They weren't men.
Right.
And that's where that came from. So women who have become used to letting the men in their life take the lead, or in situations where they may want to step forward in a work situation, but feel like people aren't inviting them in or encouraging them, it's very, very difficult and very frustrating. And then fear gets in the way. Well, what if I say something? And what if someone dismisses what I say? And what if they embarrass me in front of other people? What if I try to say it? And what if I don't handle it well? What if I disappoint myself? Or what if in my saying something different, I disappoint others? There are all these what ifs. And often what happens is women will say, you know what? I'm just not going to say it. Not worth it. Not worth it. Here are some of the most common fears that women have about speaking up that cause them to hesitate. I said I was going to give you 3. I'm going to give you 4.
Okay.
The diagram that I have here, has 4, and I made the diagram, so it's balanced, it's even. Okay, so the first one is, and there are many others, the fear of not being heard.
Mm-hmm.
If I say something, will they listen? Will they care? Will they give me the time and the attention and the focus and the respect to hear me out? Or will they ignore me? Will they tell me I'm wrong? That feels terrible. Do I really want that? I'm not sure. I don't know. Another one, fear of not being taken seriously. Will that other person give serious consideration to what you're saying? Are the words you're saying being treated with importance, or are you being dismissed? Right? And there are a lot of men, good men out there that don't see this at all. And I see this all the time. One of the most common examples, you may have had this experience yourself. I know I have. Fortunately, we have a very nice mechanic. He won't do that to me. Somebody in his shop did it to me once, and he regretted it. When a woman comes in to get her car fixed, the mechanics are often patronizing. They act like, oh, don't worry your little head over this. We'll take care of it. If anything's going to light my head on fire, it's someone telling me, don't worry your little head over it, like I'm aimless. And I have no thoughts, none whatsoever. Just don't worry that little tiny, cute little head, So there are situations in which women are treated differently, and it becomes a challenge to figure out, how do you deal with that without getting pissed off? In plain English. How do you deal with that without becoming really annoyed that you're being treated in a very condescending and disrespectful way?
Right.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't. Here are 2 more. Fear of being criticized. If I say something, will you say to me, what are you talking about? You know what you're talking about. That's not right. Being corrected. Will you correct me? Will you stand there and basically go toe to toe and create an argument with me when I'm just saying how I feel? Or will you give me the space and the courtesy and the consideration to hear what I have to say? And if you don't agree, to say, well, that's interesting. I have a different point of view, but that's interesting. So there are many, many important characteristics and qualities of a situation that has the potential to be a good one in which to have a conversation. First of all, people need to be listening.
Mm-hmm.
Now that sounds obvious, right?
Right.
However, most people have no clue about that. Why? Because people think that communication is when I talk and 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 I talk, and then you do the same thing, and then I do the same thing, and then we go back and forth and back and forth. Many people do that and nobody's listening. Is that communication? No, not at all. Communication must have listening as a critical part of it, because it's about hearing and it's about absorbing what the other person says and being able to gather what they're attempting to share with you. And if it's something that has to do with an issue or situation that you have with each other, to be able to try to gain some understanding about it.
Yes.
Women are wonderful. Most women, not everybody, but most women are wonderful at that. Listening and supporting and acknowledging and affirming and nurturing and all that. But then when they get into a situation where there are these communication saboteurs, or where the circumstances make them feel intimidated, and they sit back and they forget that they have these gifts. And they do. And one of the things that's really critical, really important for women who are looking to find the courage to speak up, which happens to be the name of one of my programs, right? One of the things that's critical is for women to realize it's likely they're going to underestimate their potential, and it's likely they're going to underestimate their abilities. And so when they start feeling kind of shaky in a situation, it's important for them to be able to say, wait a minute, am I really not clear on this? Or am I feeling thrown off by the way things are going in the situation? But I still have a sense of what I think about it and what I might want to say. It's just that the situation is making me feel less confident. It's not me. We take it on ourselves so often when it doesn't feel right in a situation. It's like, oh, well, it must be me, or, oh, I'm going to try to fix it. And sometimes it has nothing to do with us at all.
Right.
Whatsoever.
And we always take it on ourselves.
And what is that like when you take stuff on yourself, when it's not yours? What's that like?
Yeah. It's hard. And it makes you feel not good.
And you're owning something that doesn't belong to you. And I don't mean that in a critical way, but you're taking on someone else's stuff that they're responsible for, that they're doing. But we're so attuned to being the person in the situation that's going to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to make the sick person better. That's going to make people feel better after making a wonderful meal. That's going to, help someone struggling with an issue. We're going to resolve it. So we take that on when something can't be resolved. But, well, maybe it's because I'm not doing the right thing. So being able to develop a certain level of self-knowledge and self-awareness about how we respond is very important also. Because when we do that, then we can look at it and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? How much of that belongs to me and how much of it has nothing to do with me?
Right.
And how much potential is there in this situation for me to be able to say what I want to say and for it to go somewhere? Now, sometimes you really don't know. And sometimes there are difficulties with certain people, but then they get resolved, But that fear of a negative outcome is it is the number one I'm saying number one. I'm putting two fingers up. Very good. It's the number one reason that people give, that women have given me over the years, why they avoid speaking up. Because who wants to be criticized?
Right. Not me.
Who wants to be ignored, contradicted, overpowered? Who wants to have someone kidnap the conversation? But here's the thing. Unless we step forward with a sense of what we feel is important and what matters to us and evaluate, is this something that's important enough for me to try and figure out how to speak up? Then we're not going to speak up. We'll sit back and have those feelings that we want to express. We won't express them. And even though we believe that it would, on some level, it might be better not to say it because, well, then we wouldn't have the criticism or there wouldn't be the conflict. Then what happens is we end up having inner conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then continue to feel badly about ourselves because part of us would like to be able to say it. There are a lot of obstacles to our saying it. There are a lot of people that make it hard, but it's important to recognize, and I recognize it because I've been doing this work with people for years, there's a path through it. There's a path through it, and there's a way of saying what you want to say. And there's a way of figuring out whether or not a situation, as I said before, is really a good one to speak in. Some of them just aren't. And so I want to get back to something, but in a minute. I just wanted to check with you. Was there something you wanted to share or something you wanted to ask me? Because I've been doing a lot of talking and I want
Well, it was just kind of interesting as you talk about how that listening is so important. And I know as a social worker and me as a dietitian, I mean, that's like a big part of our counseling skills is to do that. And sometimes that's a hard thing for me to do. So what I hear you telling me is so that I'm making sure I'm understanding what you're saying too. And so in those conversations to be able to just clarify that what I am hearing you say is what you're really telling me too.
Mm-hmm. It's critical.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite expressions, let me see if I can remember because it's a little convoluted. What you think you heard me say is not what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
It's something similar to that. I don't remember the exact, but that's what happens. It's like you one person hears the other and thinks they know what the person is saying, but it's really not. And if it isn't, then what happens is misunderstanding. And then there are people that get triggered, and then there are arguments, and that's a lot of what I do when I work with couples. Oh my goodness, how many misunderstandings there are. Well, we have to say stop, take a step back. Look at what just happened. And let's check in with your wife. When you said this, can you help us to understand what was going on for you? What did you mean? Where were you coming from? And you need to sit back and listen to your wife, okay? And then you'll have your turn. And we do that, and it's like, oh, that's not what I thought she meant. Okay, good. When you slow down enough and say to yourself, I need to get clear on what I'm hearing so that I know if what I think I'm hearing is actually what their intention is. Because sometimes words come out in a certain way and it sounds like that's what they're saying, but they're not.
Right.
So to be able to really slow down enough to do that, and unfortunately, my father was wonderful. My mother, amazing. My father listened pretty well in some situations. My mother, sometimes, but very few people have a role model or someone who teaches them how to listen.
Right.
And it's critical. It's so important because if there's no listening, there's no communication. Right?
Yeah.
So here are some things you can do. Let me go back to mom and grandma. So what I learned from them was that smart women are really smart and capable and able to solve problems. Again, I'm not saying every single woman in the universe, but in general, women are smart and capable and able to solve problems and often underestimate their ability to do so. When my mom was growing up in the Borough Park section of Brooklyn, and they were living in, I think, a 3-bedroom apartment with 12 people.
Yikes.
Or maybe 4 bedrooms. I don't know. Probably 3 bedrooms and the living room. So everybody was sleeping in a bed with at least 2 other people.
Wow.
And they had such a good time. They had so much fun. They made it fun. They didn't complain. They didn't moan or groan. Or they hung out with each other. They got to know each other. They were very close.
Nice.
Sometimes neurotic, but that's a whole story. But they were very close because for whatever the reason, my grandmother just set the tone and they just did what they had to do. And every single sibling in the family, some are more than others, but every single one is an extremely resourceful person. And I have two of my mom's siblings left. One just turned 95 and the other one is 91.
Wow.
You know? So one of the things that I learned was not to be afraid of a complicated situation and not to look at it and say, oh my God, that's so hard. I can't do that. I mean, it might be that I might look at it and say, you know what? I'm not going to tackle that. I don't want to do it. I'm going to try something else. Right. But the message that I got was in a difficult situation. And again, it wasn't something that someone actually said. It was what I saw. And I'm so grateful to have seen it. The message, the meta message underneath what my mother and my grandmother were doing was, the message wasn't, it wasn't there looking at the situation saying, can I do this? No, they were saying, what do I need to do to get this situation resolved? What do I need to do? And then they'd set out to find a solution. And it may have been that the original thing they were going to do didn't work. And they pivoted and they found something else. But they did it that way because they had, here it comes, they had an abundance mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Abundance mindset. Okay?
That's interesting because that's my word of the year is abundance.
I love that word. Hang on one second. I'm going to just transition for a moment to this and hopefully, oh wait, hold on. How do I put this on StreamYard? I don't know. Hold on. Let's see. Edit audio avatar. No, that's not going to work. No. Wait, stop mic. Okay.
Oh. Oops, we lost her. Her device is not connected, it said, so something didn't work there. We'll just wait and see if she comes back. So, while we're waiting, what do y'all think? And the communication thing is a hard thing, and I know, and I like kind of was thinking, as I was talking about how, I try to do. Oh, there she is. Is she coming back? There we go.
I am.
Yay! I was like, all of a sudden, it was like, she's gone. So I'm like, bah. But I was kind of brattling on because I was saying, when I said about the kind of repeating back what they say, and when I was trained into doing that, that was like the weirdest feeling. So you are not happy going to the store, right? But that way you're getting it. But then the other part of it is, while I'm listening to you and I'm trying to make sure I understand, is kind of doing some voice mirroring. So repeating in my head what you're saying as we go, so that I am clear or feel like I'm clear and I'm focusing on what you're doing too. So sometimes that's something we really need to, like, we're not taught that growing up, or, except as somebody who does counseling type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I just realized I don't need these. I'm going to take them off because it's like wearing a hat inside. Do you have any questions about what I said?
um, I don't. I think it's great, because you're right. And I know there's times where, like, even in a staff meeting, they'll think, and I'll say, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want them to think I'm silly, or, they'll just like shoot it down, or so why say it, right? That's what we tend to do.
Mm-hmm. And again, it depends on the situation. It depends on what it is you want to say. And sometimes there might not be any point in saying it.
Right.
There might not be any point in saying it at all, but it depends. Right. So I want to go through the 5 strategies that I promised to talk about. Let me find them. Okay. Here we go. So this was from an article in Forbes magazine, which is pretty simple, and it gave some great basic concepts about what an abundance mindset is. So, and I'm referring to the abundance mindset for a lot of reasons, one of which is because I realized as I was preparing for this tonight, for those of you that may not have heard me say it before, is that my mother and my grandmother lived their whole lives with an abundance mindset. Mm-hmm. And here's what it is. You focus on what you have. You focus on the things that are good. You focus on your blessings. You're grateful for the good things that are in your life. So focusing on what you have is 1. Being grateful for what's good in your life is 2. Learn to look for and recognize the possibilities. What's possible? Now, what that means is look for the things that are both visible and that are not yet visible. Knowing that there are going to be things that we can see and we can say, oh, that would be something helpful. Maybe I'd try that, or that might be something I might want to say, right? However, to also say, I'm not sure how I'm going to resolve this issue yet. And maybe, just maybe, divine timing is at hand here, and it's not time yet for me to resolve this issue. I'm going to just trust that at some point the solution is going to appear, because that's what a possibility thinker does. Believe that at some point the solution will appear. When you believe that a solution is there that will eventually show up, you're less likely to be hesitant to try to do something to solve a problem. You're less likely to try to say the thing that you are thinking. Does that make sense? Did I say something wrong? I think I might have said something backwards. I think you're more likely, that's funny, you're more likely to try to say something because you have kind of an intrinsic sense that, somehow it's probably going to all work out. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, another thing is creating win-win situations. All right? Meaning finding a way to intentionally structure things in a relationship or in a situation where everyone is considered and included, and where it's designed to work for everybody. When we do that, overall, for everyone involved, things turn out better. So when we have the mindset, the abundance mindset, one strategy within which is create a win-win situation, when we are collaborating in that way, and the people with whom we're associating agree, yeah, we're gonna create a win-win situation, which will be better for everybody, right? What a concept. People are going to be more likely to feel safe to say what they want to say, feel comfortable with expressing themselves, believe that the people with whom they're speaking are more likely to listen and have an interest in what they're saying because they want a win-win situation, right?
Yep.
As opposed to people that are competitive talkers. That's another one of those, communication saboteurs. You talk and someone cuts you off. You talk and someone interrupts you. And it's very distressing. But when you're with someone who slows down enough, who looks you in the face, who asks you clarifying questions because they want to know what you have to say, because they're curious rather than competitive, it changes everything. And when you surround yourself with people that have the same kind of mindset, that are like-minded, that are positive, that are possibility thinkers, well, then the potential in that situation for things to go well is exponentially increased because you're all on the same wavelength. Even if you don't agree, your intention is to move toward that positive place of let's make it work for everybody. Now, if only people in politics believe that and actually do that, wouldn't the world be a very different place?
Yes, it would.
Right? And which is why I have said for a very long time, and I still believe it, that we are entering into a phase energetically, globally, celestially, if you will, right? I'm not an astrologist and I don't play one on TV, right? But we're entering into a phase where women are stepping into places of power and influence. We are the hope for the future. It's not the men, that's for sure.
Right.
Sorry if any guys were watching this, but it's probably very nice. But really, because we are more interested in building community than chaos. And we're more interested in making connections than having conflict. We just are. That's the way we're wired. And so my vision and my work, which I love really, is to get to know women, to bring them together, to help them see that they can benefit from other women's support. Because when you bring a group of women together who are natural nurturers, everybody's going to want to take care of everybody else. They just will. And assuming you don't have anybody who has poor boundaries, who's going to do something that is not going to work out well, assuming that people are respectful, it is a magical, magical experience. And I'm saying that because that's what I did in July of 2020. In July of 2020, after having decided that I was going to have to work on Zoom for a while when the pandemic first started, I started a women's empowerment program. And what I said, this was my hypothesis. I said, what would happen if I handpicked a group of women who were caring, loving, natural nurturers, good listeners, very warm people, and brought them together and did a group with them? What would that be like? How would they get along? Would they like each other? I was so curious to see if this one would like that one. And it was, and I'm not saying this because of me, right? I'm good at what I do. I know I am. And what I do has value, but I'm not saying it because of me. It was magical. I mean, it brought me to tears to watch these women reach out to one another and help each other and make such a difference and create that safe container that I was just describing, where people are there to help each other and people want to see each other win and they celebrate, and that's why people who have that mindset are better able to navigate the world and having that mindset, while it's not a guarantee of being able to express yourself, it makes a big difference. Because otherwise, you're in a scarcity mentality and you're afraid there's not going to be enough to go around. You're sure that people are going to be competitive and there's nobody that's going to cooperate. And some of it could be that you knew a lot of people like that in your family, which didn't help your expectations, Annie, So, and so then you become more hesitant, you become more afraid. And so for me, my work is about creating intentional communities online and hopefully also in person as things move away from the pandemic, which there's still some stuff going on, but thank goodness more of it's in the rearview mirror, more of it, not all of it, to be able to bring women together so we can have these conversations and validate each other and support one another and look at how we can find our voice and use it and not be worried about what somebody else thinks. That's their problem, not mine.
Right. That's my struggle right there. Just to be truthful is I really do. It's like, what are they thinking of me? So maybe do I really want to say that or get out here or post that? Or because I don't know what they're thinking about me. But if I have to go, then that's their problem because somebody else needs to hear what I have to say. So
listen, nobody wants to be treated in an unpleasant or hostile way. Mm-mm. And I cannot completely understand why there's hesitation. I totally get it. Now, I think that I know from my own experience, having taught these programs for 3.5 years now, right? My own original programs online. When women are with other women who are listening, who are paying attention, and who are nurturing and warm, it creates safety. It creates a safe environment where everyone can feel okay to come out and speak. I've had people that have worked with me who have sent, they wrote, they gave me feedback on being in my programs, and they said, I'm a very quiet person. I just don't usually speak up. And I was shocked that I just felt so comfortable and I was able to speak so easily. That's not me. Well, that's not true, obviously, because that person was able to talk because the environment was right.
Yeah.
The environment was right. We need that. We really do. And with that in mind, I want to mention that I have a program that is a free one. It's a 3-day personal empowerment infusion. It's not a challenge. It's not a boot camp. It's a very soft, gentle, inner reflective program, inner reflection program, which is called Say Yes to You. Mm-hmm. Say yes to you. And I'm crafting it now. I am actually speaking with people that I work with and people that I know and asking people, what would you want that program to contain so that I can give people exactly what it is they want? Because there are many different ways I could do it. Okay. That program is free. And I have the link to the page where you can sign up and you can go on the waiting list because I am in the process of firming up the dates for it, but it'll be 3 days and it'll probably be an hour a day. It will be pre-recorded. You can get the recording if you can't make it to the session. And we're going to have a really powerful experience of really looking into this and recognizing what it takes to say yes to yourself.
Nice.
Because you know what? Sometimes the thing you want is right in front of you. And it's like, can I just say yes and just do it? And sometimes it's not that easy. But so if anybody's interested in that, I'm not sure the best way to do this because I have no idea how to give you a link here. Is there a place? Oh, there's a chat. I can put it in the chat.
Yeah. Put it in the chat. Okay. And, I love that because that's saying yes to yourself because like, we said, we women are the nurturers and we take care of everybody else and we don't say yes to ourselves. And so we really need to learn to do that. And that's part of some of my programs too, is just like making time for yourself and taking care of yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that whole concept about the having a group of women to come together. I mean, that's part of my programs I do, because I could record them and send out the each week to you. But I like that let's get together, because all you women are going through this menopausal journey together,
Mm-hmm.
and you can support each other. Everybody's different, but yet
Mm-hmm.
we're all here to support each other, because we don't always get the support from the outside world either.
Right.
During this menopause journey, people tell us just to suck it up and deal with it.
And as you told me when we spoke about it recently, there are so many people in the medical field that have no clue how to help. None.
Mm-mm.
You go to them for help and they want to give you medication. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
sometimes that's a good solution, but there are a lot of other things out there that they don't know about. And so
Yeah.
then someone who's going through menopause, and I can certainly relate and have a lot of compassion for women that are going through it, they feel like they're floundering. So someone like you who's offering these, services and programs, it's a very valuable, you are a very valuable resource for people to know about.
Right. Because it doesn't have to be, well, and the way I look at it too is, you can do the hormone replacement therapy, doing the estrogen progesterone replacements, and they work, but you've got to add the other pieces in. You need to eat the right nutrition. You need to live the right lifestyle. And it all works together. I mean, everything, one thing or two things are only going to work to a point if you don't put it all together.
Right, you have to know what the right formula is. And if you go to a doctor and the doctor is like, here's medication, okay, but you're missing all the other pieces.
Yeah.
Because in some cases, medication is the solution, and it is a critical solution depending on what the situation is. But in many cases, there are a lot of other things you can do. So it's really great to have someone like you people can talk to about this, so then they don't feel alone and they understand what's going on inside of them. That's got to be, I know that's got to be for a lot of people the hardest part of it.
Right. Yeah. Because it is hard to go through this, and hard to know. And I always talk about, I had depression, like severe depression, going through it at that certain point. And I went and I tried this antidepressant and that antidepressant, and it just didn't work. And I just didn't understand why. But there was a hormonal thing there. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking here because I think your chat or your comment only went into just can't post comments to Facebook profiles. I don't know if we can. I don't think we can comment. Your link just went to like the private chat we have in here. So,
well, can you just put it on afterward with a replay? Yep. That's fine.
Yep, I will do that. I just copied it, and so we'll put it on there. But yeah, so I like tried all these medications. I'm depressed, and the doctor kept trying this and this and this, and I finally just said, forget it. I'm like, I don't even like how I feel on these medications. And so, but I've learned, number one, that was a hormonal issue more so. But there's the ways to deal with it that I was dealing with it in the wrong way. I feed my emotions, and I don't feed them the good things. And so I was eating junk, which just is going to make you feel worse. And, you may not sleep. Well, we don't sleep right necessarily in midlife. And so there's just all those things that we don't realize. And I was so stressed at that moment in my life. So it's just like all these tiny pieces adding up. And I love that, in midlife, women tend to be a little more outspoken, maybe, and kind of you just go, I don't care anymore.
Exactly. That's what my grandmother said at some point. She said, it used to bother me. Now it's like, I say what I feel like saying.
Well, it was so funny. I think about it because the other day I went to work. It is like, 10 degrees and cold. And I've always been like, I like to be so cute and dress fashionable and, my leggings and my cute little boots. And I was like, screw that. I'm wearing my winter boots with my leggings. And it's like, you know what? That's my middle life me. I like, I can be cute, but I can be comfortable too.
And you know what? Cute if you're freezing cold doesn't go only go so far, right?
Right. Yeah. Because I'm like, I'm over it. Of course, a couple years ago, I was still warm enough that it wouldn't have mattered. But
Right, exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that if anyone in the audience is interested in speaking with me about what I'm doing, I offer a free phone consultation, 30 minutes. If we need a little bit more, that's fine. We can talk about the different issues you're having. I specialize in helping people with building confidence and empowering their communication. And I also help people with relationship issues. And so often, people in relatively healthy relationships where there's tension, it's communication. There's a breakdown or they're just misunderstanding each other. And if the relationship is healthy enough and the two people involved are receptive to trying to understand what's going on and learning, great things can happen. So if anybody's interested, you're welcome to get in touch with me. I will give the information to Kim and she can pass it on with the replay.
Yep. It's
So,
interesting. You talk about the couples working together and their communication. I'm like, my husband and I started out with a huge communication gap because he didn't know English and my Spanish was like about that much. And so, yeah, I had to learn more Spanish and he learned English. And yeah, our communication still wasn't particularly awesome because I couldn't always express things the way I wanted to in Spanish. And I wasn't quite sure if he was totally understanding me in English.
right. And things translate differently. So when you
Mm-hmm.
say it in one language, it may not be received in the same way in the other language.
Yeah, yeah, that
So,
was that was a real struggle in the beginning because my Spanish was. Everybody thought I spoke Spanish. I'm like, I took it in high school, I took it in college, but I'm not like an awesome speaker. But here we are. What we do? We got married in 96, August of 96. So whatever that is, years later.
mhm.
I mean, we're not living together, but we're better friends now that we don't live together and have to be a couple and deal with that relationship piece.
Sometimes that's what it takes to get along.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's a wise couple, as hard as it is to go through it, who can look at it and say, you know what, that's really going to be better.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so
That was a hard. That was hard. That was a hard thing to go through.
yeah.
But yeah, we we hang out more, do things together more now than
That's
we
good.
did as a
Good,
marriage.
very good.
So
So I'm so happy we did this. I hope that
yeah,
your audience found it helpful. I hope you found it helpful.
yes,
Um,
it was awesome. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's important. It's important that we take a deep dive into this and understand it better because it can change the nature of
Mhm.
our reality because it can transform our relationships and change how we feel in our life. So,
I had and I can't remember exactly how she said it, but like when her and her partner were not agreeing, they agreed to put it in, like they had a basket and we'll put it in the basket and we'll come back and talk tomorrow about it or in 24 hours when we've cooled down.
uh-huh.
So they would just take their like whatever, just like I put my thing in here
Right.
and I was like, what a good thought because when you're
Yeah,
in the heat.
there are a lot of great strategies that can help. And at some point down the road, if you want me to come back again, we can talk about some of those too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Well, this has been really, really great. I'm
thank you.
so
It
glad you
has.
joined us because communication is like a huge piece of our life,
Mhm.
and I just think about getting, like any stage of life, but boy, this midlife one, we're really struggling.
Right. And you don't have to. You just don't have to. There are many things that will transform your life in midlife when you have the right environment, when you have the right people in your life, and when you understand when you are in a situation why it's one that you really need to walk away from. It makes a huge difference.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Well, awesome. Thanks for
thank you.
joining me. And
Thank you
we
so
will
much, Megan.
definitely have to keep up with you. Um, and we'll make sure that we have your contact information in the comments. So,
Okay.
okay.
Wonderful. It's been delightful. Thank you so much for your time and for asking me to be a guest. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed it thoroughly. It's a lot of fun talking to you and chatting about this stuff.
I know. Yeah. And of course, we all got the other day just beforehand just to make sure we were good. And we were out for like 2 hours so we can communicate.
We did a good job. I give us kudos, both of us kudos.
Right.
Anyway, you take good care and have a
Yep.
really good evening,
You too.
everybody.
Everybody have a great week. Bye bye.
Everybody have a great week. Thanks for joining us. Take care.